Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of Emerging Brands with Kelly Bennett podcast. I recently updated the name because I wanted to really talk to people who are behind the scenes building industry leading brands. And today I am interviewing someone really special that I've been so excited to talk with. I think they have the coolest job in the world. Katie Mastropieri of Meta. She is the creator partner at Instagram for the lifestyle and wellness team. Hi, Katie. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you doing?
I'm doing so good. I was just saying, I think that you have the coolest job in the world. Like what you're
That's so
doing,
nice.
you're welcome. And I follow your Instagram. I see the events that you're doing, the brand activations that you're working on. We were just saying, as far as lifestyle brands and what you bring to life is just so cool. And I'm just really stoked to talk with you today.
Oh, and I'm so happy to be here and chat with you as well. I love your podcast, first of all. And
Thank
second of
you.
all, I'm so happy, like, so nice to hear, obviously, that your job is amazing. But I'm like, that's Instagram doing its job. So it's working.
Absolutely. And I found you
Yeah.
on Instagram. So there we go. It's very
Yeah.
full
Yeah.
circle.
That's
So to
awesome.
kick things off, I would love to hear a little bit more about your background.
Sure.
What did you do before this? How did you land in creative partnerships, lifestyle, wellness? Like, I would love to just hear your story.
Sure. Thanks. And to preface this, I just want to say I can't wait to hear more also on your background of family history in the radio space
Oh,
because
yeah.
it shows.
Thank
And
you.
I think it's awesome how you're hosting this because it's really inspiring to hear what everyone else is doing and how they got there.
That makes me
Um,
really happy.
yeah. So I was thinking, I mean, I can start with like after college, post a quick little resume
Yes,
recap,
please.
but I worked in an ad agency for a while in Chicago called Leo Burnett. And then after that, and I will say while I was there, they also I don't even know what the right word is, but basically you can apply to second city classes with when you're an intern and when you're full time, and they pay for 75%. So I also,
How
similar to your family,
cool.
I did the 1 year improv program at Second City Chicago, and that helps tremendously with just icebreakers, mingling.
Absolutely. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I love that. In Second City,
Yeah.
that's a really amazing improv.
I mean, they're just incredible over there because they also set you up like once I don't know, I did like A through E. That's how many classes you have in the one
Okay.
year program. And once you finish that, they kind of just evaluate like, oh, are you more interested in video or writing? So I did do viral video writing with Scott Dickers, who founded The Onion. And that is actually what set me up for how much I love content. Because I interned as a social media intern for a while in college, but then it wasn't until then that I realized I was like, oh, I love the behind the scenes. Like I'm
That
not,
is such a
yeah.
cool path to content. I have not heard that one. That is really
Oh, cool.
interesting.
Okay, I thought it was so fun too because if you take a class, I mean, it doesn't hurt. And I thought that in the class I'd maybe want to do something more like film writing but that kind of made me realize how much I enjoy working with clients, but I also enjoy the creative aspect of it more. So
Hmm.
I wouldn't like it was such a long road to get to where I am now, but now it's kind of been like I had that idea from that day in like 2015 that I realized I was like, I want to be helping people create content more because it's not necessarily like posting, it's more how do you hook them?
Hmm.
So that was the start. And then I worked at probably 4 startups after that. And the most recent before Meta was Maestro, and it was like basically a COVID job, full-time COVID job of Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting, which sounds exhausting because it kind of was.
Right.
But I think everyone was doing that in COVID, but they do all the in-stream services of concerts and conferences. So that,
Interesting.
yeah, and that gave me a huge advantage. It was like I moved from New York to LA and I took a pay cut, but it was so worth it in the end because I realized I was like managing one-on-one with like Melissa Etheridge, Dead Mouse. I had an opportunity to work with clients that I love and I love music. So
Wow.
yeah, so I think that taking a risk to work at a startup, usually it's a 50-50 chance of whether it's going to
Yes.
get you to the next thing. I think you're in a dream position working for yourself.
Well,
Because I
thank
tried,
you.
Yeah, I tried to work for myself twice and it's really hard. It's hard to sustain unless you have the chops. So I feel like I'd love to hear more about how you did that full leap too. But that got me to Meta and I finally found a referral and he referred me and then finally got the job after like 2 months of interviewing. And it's been great since.
Wow.
I feel like I've evolved a lot from it, but still have so much to learn, obviously, because
So walk us through too, because I know that you also worked in wellness, right?
yes.
So
So
how
I
was that piece of the chapter?
Yeah. So I used to, this is so funny. I'll start with, I was a D1 athlete. So I played lacrosse and I realized how much mental health matters when I was a junior in college because I got a concussion.
Oh,
And
wow.
my family is not a family that it's very old school. Like no one's seeing a therapist. They were kind of like, oh, you don't have anything wrong. Like, why do you need to see a therapist? And I had that moment of like learning more about that in college through a sports nutritionist who was telling me, hey, no, like it's just to reach a better version of yourself. And like, amen. And
Yes.
it's so true. If you want to be the best version of yourself, talking to a third party who doesn't know anything about, I mean, basically you're dissecting things and it opens your eyes to, oh, I'm actually thinking about this in the wrong perspective or whatever. So anyway, the concussion led me to learn more about therapy and that piqued my interest of just like, okay, overall mental health. I didn't know that much about it before. And then after, I think it was 2 years after I was working at Leo Burnett, so skip a few years ahead, I had this idea of I want to do a gag gift. I worked at the Entrepreneur Center when I was in college. How can I start like a little company and just see how it goes on Kickstarter? So I did something called the Hangover Helmet. And
Okay,
who
tell me more.
I should have worn it or like brought it, but I didn't know we were going to be talking about this today. Um, but it's a trapper style hat with ice packs in it. And I raised 12,000 on Kickstarter and I actually had so much fun making that video and it was a fun launch party. And then I did that for about a year and a half. And so we raised it and then I met with manufacturers through Alibaba. And then
Wow.
and then I realized I was like, oh, I can't make holistic gel packs through Alibaba. So I had to make the hats in China and find ice pack manufacturers in the US. And then I worked with like a patent lawyer, a trademark lawyer, and it was so much work. And I wish I'd done, if I had known better, I would have had a co-founder because I really highly recommend that for anyone who's creating a product. I think that
Yes.
if you are not inventing the product, it might be fine to do it one-on-one with just you and like working with drop shipping or someone. But that was a huge learning curve for me because I was so burnt out from it in the end when it was still a fun concept. But um
Sure.
yeah,
That's a lot to be
yeah,
in development and then patenting and trademark and all of that. That's a lot
yeah.
to all be doing by yourself.
It was a lot. I also, after Chicago, I left home and like moved home to Maryland to start it just because I realized it was going to take more time and just cost more. So I was like, I'm going to move home. So I was 26 when I moved home, which is kind of a blow to your ego if anyone else has done that, which I think it's more common now.
Yeah, I've done that quite a few times into my 30s too. I've been like, hey, I'm just gonna pop
Yeah.
by for a little bit. I'm just kind of like
I
working on a new thing. Yeah,
love
I
hearing
did that.
that. Okay,
I did that
yeah.
2 years ago. Uh-huh.
I love this because it's also no shame and it's actually
Yeah,
a huge privilege that we have because I'm sure you're close to
totally.
your parents if this is happening.
Hmm.
I love hanging out with my mom, so I'm the
Me
youngest of
too.
four. Yeah. And you have siblings, you said.
I do. I have a younger sister. And actually, in the last time I was living with my mom for like a few months, my ex
Yeah.
girlfriend happened to also be staying with my mom. So it was like modern Golden Girls. And I was like, okay.
Sitcom. Yeah.
And it was in a situation where I was like, this is the most ridiculous scenario. I was
Yeah.
what, 36 and like
Yeah.
living with like my mom, my ex-girlfriend, five dogs. I'm in Vegas. I'm like, well, if there was one
Wait.
comedy act that this is never going to happen again, but I'm just going to go with it. That
Oh
was
my
my
God.
before I moved back to New York this last time. So I'm all for like a random
Wait.
situation.
I also think that's iconic because I'm like, you should write a sitcom. That is the good comedy skit that your sister needs or whoever's doing
But
stand-up.
yes, no, my
Yeah.
sister is the actor. I remember calling her. I'm like, Kate, I got a show. Like,
Yeah.
I think I got it.
You're like, we're gonna be millionaires.
This is it. I think
Okay,
I'm
great.
living the ticket. I think this is the
Yeah.
thing. So yeah,
Oh,
that
that's
could be
amazing.
my side project. But yeah,
It
so I
is.
I could empathize with like
Yeah.
moving in back and just kind of like redirecting what you want to be doing.
Yes. Also, I need your esthetician because the fact that you just said 36, I'm like, everyone's gonna be shook by that. You
Oh
look
my
amazing.
gosh.
I really was like, Kelly must be younger than me.
No, I'm
Yeah.
38. I turned 38
Okay.
this year. So thank you
Hey,
so
cheers.
much. Thank
Yes, of
you.
course. I'm also in my 30s, 31, but I was thinking, I was like, this is so funny because skincare is more than ever been such a hot topic. Billy actually is an incredible,
Yes,
our mutual
they
friend.
are so good at skincare. And I've been following along Billy Black. If
Yes,
anyone isn't following them on Instagram, known
they're
them for a
so
very
good.
long time and is sharing the best skincare advice. So I
Yes.
actually use one of their the cleanser that they
Oh,
recommended.
okay.
So
We'll
I'll
connect
share.
after.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait. So yeah, I think even now that we can talk about that too, is going back to the living at home period. Sometimes it's just tempting. I'm like, maybe I should just move back home for a little bit because you can get so relaxed and more creative. That is the huge benefit
Totally.
for anyone who's considering it. It was worth it because I ended up doing Hangover Helmet, and then through that I started a wellness company called Feel the Remedy LLC.
Ooh, I
So,
love that name.
and that's very LA of me actually, but I was still living in Maryland when I started it.
That was foreshadowing of what was going
Yeah.
to come.
Yeah. So Feel the Remedy. I still have hangover helmets on Amazon, but I'm actually taking them down as we speak just to sell in wine shops because it's more of a funny gift. It's a white elephant gift every year. Um,
Love that.
but yeah, and so now I'm just hoping to do, since I work a lot in wellness and mental health through Instagram and Meta, I'm hoping to start a podcast that's talking more about people. Yeah,
Yes.
which is why I'm also so honored to be on yours.
Yes.
Um, I know I could use your tips because
Absolutely.
I want to talk about more people's like who are doing these things, such as yourself and people who are going out on a limb to take a risk on themselves and start a business. What is their mental health? Like, what is the break and how do you get over it? Because I think we've all had one, and it's just something that everyone needs to normalize. It's so
I've had
frustrating.
quite a few. And so when you're ready to
One.
record that
Yeah.
episode, I have quite a few stories that
Okay.
I'm more than happy to share because I really think
Yeah,
it's so important to show the behind the scenes. I've always
totally.
been someone of like, let me get through it and then I
Yeah.
could share about it. That's been like my boundary of storytelling. But now that
Yeah.
I've come really to the other side of it, yes, I have a whole um segment of all different
I love it.
chapters. Yeah,
Okay,
so let me
perfect.
know. I'm
Yeah, you're
down.
hired.
I'm so down.
I actually can't wait to hear yours too, because I mean, you are so put together. So I can't wait to just, you'll
Oh.
definitely inspire so many people because it is interesting. Like, I don't know if you've seen a therapist or you're seeing one now or you've
Mhm.
switched therapists, but like I just switched from a man to a woman recently. And just because I kind of had a moment where I was like, oh, I think I'm just ready for a change. And she made me realize just like the things that you start, I'm starting when I'm not going through any issues right now, knock on wood. And she was saying that's the best time to start, which
Yes.
she was like,
I
it's rare, but
totally I
yeah,
love that. No, I've done a lot of different modalities and going to therapy even through COVID. That was like a big leap and how I started the business I have now was I was going through therapy for really the first time like more intensive therapy and building a business. So I was doing
wow,
both at the same time
yeah,
and I couldn't have done one without
sure.
the other. So I always tell
Oh,
people like
yeah,
going to therapy was probably one of the biggest things that impacted me building a business, the one that I have today that has good boundaries, good
yeah.
communication, one that I'm able to show up fully and not burnt out because I went to therapy to work on the stuff that I didn't want to repeat again.
Oh,
So
that's
I
incredible.
totally I'm a big advocate for that.
Wow, congrats also. I'm like,
Oh,
that's I
thank
think
you.
setting boundaries and starting a company go hand in hand, but it's
They
so challenging.
really they really do.
Yeah,
It was all in one. So you had that wellness company and then though
yeah,
at the same time or in the middle of that time you're like, but I do want to work with either bigger brands or was it that you also wanted to supplement or not
yeah.
necessarily do entrepreneurship all the time? But what did
So
that
I
look
think,
like for you?
yeah, no, that's a great question because I think it more so was that since I did get a little burnt out from it, like I had
Mhm.
this peak where it went on Jimmy Kimmel's Christmas guide, his holiday gift guide. And I won't
Wow.
be scared to say this. I sent so many PR packages. Like I even went to Jimmy Fallon's show, showed up with hangover helmets with one of my best friends, and Will Smith was the guest. It was a surprise guest.
Wow.
Shook every single person's hand on the aisle. And so I handed him two hangover helmets and he took them and was like, wow, thank you. And so nice and genuine, just like a funny, like I've never had a celebrity moment like that. And so I was like, yep, Jimmy Fallon's show is going to be the one that gets attention. Like nothing happened from that show. But then 2 weeks later, it happened on Jimmy Kimmel and I sent him one package and I didn't think it was going to go through and it happened. So I was like, okay, that was
Wow.
but I'm sure you're familiar with this. I think any entrepreneur who's okay to be so scrappy and just here goes nothing, it's gonna work. Just like the timeline is never gonna work in your favor. I feel like
Yep. Gonna take at least double the time,
yeah,
double the money,
exactly.
double
So
the stress, you
yeah,
try to navigate that part, but what a cool story. So you had
oh,
that
thanks.
moment,
Yeah,
and then what was that deciding of like, was it, okay, I could like go all in on this, or I could keep going with this, or was like,
yeah.
well, that was kind of the moment and maybe I'm
So
done with it. Like what did that look like?
no, totally. Like I actually I would have loved to go all in and do it full time, but I just moved to New York and it was so expensive and I was just starting a new job at
Yes.
Uber. I was actually Uber Eats partnerships. So I was in their corporate
Amazing.
office. Yeah, and I loved it. That was such a I don't know if you've ever worked in sales, but
Mhm.
I worked in the sales partnership for Uber Eats and you had to hit a call. I was like cold outreach, cold calling time each day. And I think it was 90 minutes a day, which doesn't sound that hard because
No,
you're
but that's
I'm
really
chatting.
hard.
I bet it is hard. And so it was just I realized then I mean I was like, I don't know if I'm good out for sales because I was calling mom and pop shops and they would be like, do you think that will offset the costs? And I was like, probably not. I don't think you should sign up. I'm like, the tablet's gonna make you go broke. I didn't say that, but I just felt bad for them. And I realized I was like, I'm not the person to be pushing sales on this mom and pop shop.
And I could say from
So
a restaurant partner side,
yeah.
you're not wrong.
Yeah. The tablet was not always helping companies, especially mom
Yeah.
and pop. Yeah, you would know. So I
Mhm.
basically realized I have to stay in corporate to like keep my health benefits, paying rent, whatever.
Totally.
And so I would have loved to go in on it, but I just didn't have the resources at the time to decide or like lean on a co-founder. So I think that in retrospect, similar to what you said, just like needed time to learn how to set boundaries.
Mhm.
Also, I go out like crazy. And so I've limited that since my 20s, but I used to go out like every night. So I, especially living in New York, anyone can
Yes.
relate to that. I mean, it's probably similar in Vegas. Um, but I think that just like learning my boundaries as well. So now I think I would have a different approach to entrepreneurship even than I like even then. And I'm enjoying my current job. So I can't imagine doing entrepreneurship yet, but I know in the future I'd want to again.
Well, what you're learning now too, building your corporate resume could be leveraged in so many different ways. And your skill set is just the
Thanks.
future of how you build and activate brands.
Thank
Like
you so
that's
much.
also what I really admire about what you're doing. I'm like, this is the future of like how we're bringing brands to life. So I would love to hear more about
Yeah.
what does it look like behind the scenes and like what if someone who's listening was like, whoa, that is the coolest job title. Like, can you
Oh,
give us a little bit more of like what that looks like on a day-to-day
sure.
basis?
Oh yeah. Like, and to give you more color too, I will say my favorite part of the job is working with emerging entrepreneurs and people who are hungry to get just new content out. If they're like, this isn't working, oh, maybe they're sick of seeing me on the camera. That's not it. I'm like, the algorithm's constantly changing. So
Thank you. I'm gonna
yeah.
save this clip too
Yeah.
and send it to clients. Be like, listen to Katie. I'm telling
Yeah.
you,
Yeah, I will
listen to
happily
Katie.
repeat that anytime because
Thank
I
you.
actually just had a client yesterday say, hey, my story views, it used to be 30,000. Now I'm down to 1,000. What is happening? Are they sick of me? I'm like, that is not happening. I think there's so many different, obviously, there's so many different ways that you can change that, but posting every day, just being consistent is a challenge, but that's number one, just helping yourself like get more engagement is just posting every day, even if it's stories or it's probably unrealistic to post a reel every single day unless you're a full-time creator or if you can
Mhm.
outsource it. Um, I think that that's probably the first prereq that I should share with everyone is a lot of these full-time creators are actually hired, like they're hiring even a part-time assistant or someone because you just can't do it all. Making content, I think people who aren't content creators think, oh, that's so creative and cute that they're doing that. Like
It's a
it's so
lot
much
of
work.
work.
It's so much work. So when people are full-time creators, I have so much respect for them. And like my favorite part of working with people is hearing like their pain points because oftentimes there's always a solution. It's just figuring out what is it for that person. So I think that right now my favorite creator that I'm working with is starting a fitness. She's doing a fitness line of clothing.
Cool.
So and not that I pick favorites, but I'm just I admire that she's doing this because she's also studying for the LSAT and doing so
Wow.
much work. So I was like, okay, you need to outsource. Like this is actually an easy fix. You can't do this by yourself. So I think it's just that's where your entrepreneurship totally comes in hand.
Are you seeing that more and more from the creator side of a creator, one leveraging for paid content, but also parlaying their platform for creating a business and just
Yes.
creating different streams of revenue? Because I've been seeing that trend too. So I'm curious from your
Yeah.
perspective.
I almost think it's necessary unless your content is, it depends. Like if you're a comedy creator, that is your bread and butter. You don't really need to create anything else. Sometimes t-shirts, tote bags, like that can be fun. But I
Right.
do think that with TikTok, it's just made people realize, wow, I could just go live and sell out on lip gloss or something like that. So I think that a lot of creators are feeling the pressure. And I don't think everyone needs to fall into it depending on their niche. Like if you're a food creator, I think you don't need to do that. Like there's certain people who would obviously gain so much from it, but I think it's a lot of pressure to be a creator. So I'm never like, I want to be a creator. I love helping people do it because I think it's just a lot of work.
And I think it's not a one size fits all. And
Yeah.
entrepreneurship isn't for everyone too, because that is a different take on being a creator, right?
Yes.
It takes a different skill set and just a different approach to things. And I think
Yeah.
also what we've been seeing similar, not exactly, but just using, say, celebrities as an example, who used to be that influencer, right? Before there was this creator space and
Yes.
market, when now they're coming out with product lines and it just feels unauthentic and just kind of could feel a little cheesy and like, well, where the
Yeah.
hell did this come from? Right. So I think
Yeah.
it's now similar to creatives. It's something that they talk about or products that they use and it feels natural and organic. I think that is a good play to even test and experiment to see
Yeah.
how your community is feeling about you selling a certain product. But I think that just making it feel authentic is a big piece of the puzzle too.
Yes. I actually love the Selena Gomez rare beauty and mental health piece. I think that is something.
I think she's doing a great job.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. And I think that could have gone awry, but the fact that she's been through so much and then shares
Yes.
her story, picks ambassadors, I think it's perfect. Yeah.
I think she's a really great case study of someone who was already talking about mental health,
Yeah.
talking about their own health
Yeah.
journey, and then was able to bring in a product line, but then bring that storyline full circle. That makes sense. And she
Yes.
also has great products. So then the products also just spoke for themselves too, which I think you need both.
1000%. It's funny. I just got my first rare beauty product recently because and
Ooh.
I was kind of shocked I hadn't gotten one sooner, but I mean, I'm sure you watch all these skincare and
Yes.
beauty. It's already on my explore page, whether I like it or not.
Yep.
I feel like now I'm just trying everything.
Yes.
But yeah, I guess my question for you too is like, how much have you seen, like, have you ever felt pressure? Because obviously you're doing a podcast and you're
Mhm.
helping so many brands. I'm like, do you ever feel pressure to do more?
I used to put a lot of pressure on myself to,
Yeah.
create more so as far as, like, books. I was getting a lot
Okay.
of requests like, "Oh, do you have a book?" And it was
Well,
also to help build credibility because a lot of people who say have a podcast or in that, like, personal brand space,
yeah.
many people have books. So I did have this pressure on myself, and also I'm dyslexic, and, like, the
Oh,
idea
that
of
is
writing a
great.
book just felt so daunting, right?
Yeah.
So last year, though, what I did was transcribe all the classes and all my consulting
Oh,
calls from like year plus and was able to create more of a workbook guide of like
wow, that's
my
incredible.
method. Yeah. And so now I could say like I have the book, I did it, and I want to rework it a little bit and then relaunch it. It sold
That's
out, which was really
cool.
cool. It's first
Hey,
round. And I did it
congrats.
all myself. I self-published. My
Wow.
girlfriend helped me like pack everything and bring it to
Oh,
the post office. It was really such a moment.
that is a
Um,
moment.
it was
Oh,
cool, but
congrats.
thank
Yeah,
you. But I had that, it was interesting. I had that storyline. I was like, I
sure.
cannot complete this year until I have a book. And
Yes.
that was like something really important to me. And then once I did it, I'm like, okay, I let that pressure go. And now I'm really seeing, okay, what do I want to bring back in? Because I feel like I check the box that I had just
Sure.
always put that pressure on myself.
Yeah.
And so now I'm looking at it again, editing it, reworking it a bit. Yeah, but I used to have that storyline in my
Yeah.
head for a
Wow.
really long time.
Well, it's also really incredible that you're not burnt out and you're already reworking it and you're like, I'm gonna keep that means it's like you're enjoying the process, which I think
I
is so
am.
important. Yeah.
And that was something too that really helped me through my own mental health journey, and recently even taking anxiety medication has
Oh,
really
nice.
helped me. Yeah,
Yeah.
and journaling and taking time for myself and like actually going and
Oh,
re-engaging with people too and finding that balance. I'm
yeah.
finding the joy again in like the creative process, which
Yes.
feels really nice to be on the other side of not just feeling burnt out anymore, but like, okay, no,
Yeah.
this is good. I just want to edit it a little bit more before I put it back out
Yes.
there.
Which is
So yeah,
also like
it's
not to
that
be cheesy,
intersection again.
and that's kind of a good metaphor. You also just like edited your feelings of like, oh, maybe I need to adjust my anxiety because I think
Yes.
that's so important to recognize that you even notice you have anxiety because so many creatives work with high functioning anxiety and don't even know it, which
Yes.
I I actually I feel like I'm not taking anything for anxiety, but I do have to, if I don't work out or like walk, I'm like I you never know. And I that's also why I'm seeing a therapist because you never know.
Hmm.
There's so many holistic therapists in LA, by the way, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Yes.
They're like, we don't do medicine. I'm like, well, we are in 2023.
Yes.
So
A little bit
let's
of both.
consider it.
Um,
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point because I used to think that my anxiety like made me creative because I was
Oh,
always doing stuff. And especially when I was a
yeah.
partner of a restaurant, we had two locations and
Oh my
I
God.
was the
Yeah.
creative director, I was the marketing, I was PR, I was social media,
Wow.
I was events. Like I
Too
wore so
much.
many hats,
Yeah.
an insane amount of hats. I pretty much threw an event every single day at one point.
Wow.
And so I was just always thinking of content and creating and events
Yeah.
and curating and building community, all this stuff. So I was able to function at such a high level, but it was so anxiety driven. So
Sure.
now I actually ironically moved back to New York to like chill out and like heal my anxiety, which doesn't make sense to everybody, but it's working for me.
That's great. I
Because
also
it's
love New
just,
York. The
yeah, it's
stimulus
just the
is
energy.
great. Yeah, I was gonna say, I actually think that if you've already done it and you've moved away, you're probably like, oh, I miss that buzz and energy. It is
It fills me up.
great.
It fills me up.
Yeah.
And so this time around, I was like, okay, I want to feel calmer and I want to feel more
Yeah.
grounded. And I'm building back up what I want to add back into my schedule. I kind of
Oh,
like
that's
cleared the
amazing.
deck and
Yeah.
like being intentional what I'm adding back on. And I'm actually now feeling like, okay, I could add more things on
Nice.
that I used
Yeah.
to do because I'm from a much more calm, grounded place and I'm much
Yeah.
more organized. So
That's
again,
amazing.
that intersection, I'm so happy that you're gonna, I can't wait for your podcast because
Hey,
I'm gonna
you're
nerd
so
out on
sweet.
it.
Okay.
No,
I
they totally work together.
Yeah, and I think everything happens for a reason because I had to apply, like I had to tell work, hey, I want to work on this podcast for
Oh,
clients because you can't like do it during work hours and whatnot.
right.
Depends. So you have to take PTO or you have to do it on the weekends or something or after work hours. So I just got that approved. So I'm kind of like, all right, let's get it. So this is perfect launch pad. I definitely
Congratulations.
want you to
Yes.
guess. So you'll have to we'll find time out. But yeah. Oh, and
I
I
will
can't
be
hear
happy to
more.
do that.
And in New York, did you go back to the original location or did you change neighborhoods?
I went back to
Um,
the same neighborhood.
oh, nice. Okay,
Yeah, so
also is
I
my
had a
connection
whole
on
full
social.
circle moment of coming back to the city and again, just connecting all the dots of my entrepreneurial journey and just also my mental health and wellness journey. Like everything came full
Yes.
circle. So, yeah,
Oh,
I'll
that's
talk all about it
incredible.
on your
Congrats.
podcast too. Thank
Yeah.
you. So, I
Yes.
want to just talk a little bit more about what you're doing at Instagram because again, it's so
Yeah.
cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What
We just
trends
went
are
on so
you
many tangents.
No, I love it. This is going to be a good episode. There's so many like part twos we could do. But I would love to
Totally.
hear of just from your side, any other trends, like you said, like working with emerging brands, and also established brands, working with creators, anything
Yeah.
else, or maybe even if you were to say, like, give advice to an emerging brand that's like, oh my gosh, I would one day love to be in an activation with Instagram or with Meta, or I would love to, find a way to work in partnerships or something like that. Oh, hold on. Okay, there you are. So what I was saying was, can you hear me? No, wait. Your audio. Oh, just unmute yourself.
Oh, oops. Okay. Now we're good.
Perfect. Good.
Welcome
Perfect.
back. All right.
Welcome back. We're
Yeah.
live TV today. I love it. But what I was just saying is any advice you would share with an emerging brand founder, someone
Sure.
who, maybe is a little bit apprehensive or nervous of like how to even approach someone like you or put their brand out there through an activation or seeing how they could even work with bigger brands. Like any advice you would share on that side of it?
Yeah, okay, I would say I would start with if you have an idea of what kind of content you can create or you're interested in creating, I would make a content calendar because it is so important just to have a consistent schedule, which I think it's funny because like anyone who is creative is usually like battling with the word consistent.
Literally my calls all week. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and same. I mean, even
Yes.
and I have to answer your question earlier too, but like my daily, what like a day in the life of my job is also talking to creators every day and
Mhm.
kind of learning like what's your struggle, what are you doing well with, and like everyone's different. But I will say like the consistency thing is I mean, everyone is dealing with different, I don't know, different levels of that. Like if they're consistent with stories, they might not be consistent with reels. And it's nice because like Fridays are our day of no meetings, but we can like send emails and recaps. So
Oh, I love that.
yeah, it is nice that they do the no meeting Friday rule because it gives us all a break and like recharge. Um,
Totally.
and I will say, I'm like, I definitely didn't do a full face of makeup today, and I'm a little bit regretting that because your makeup looks.
No.
But I was thinking, I was like, if anyone wants to get into content, I think that starting small with a creator calendar or content calendar or just baby goals of like, hey, this is who I look up to, and seeing what kind of content they're creating, or like, let's say I'm following you and I find that you're talking about a topic that I'm interested in, I would immediately DM you. Just like be a little more outgoing because most people on social media want to hear from you is they're
Mhm.
already putting their content out and they're excited about what they're producing, then they want to, I would love to collaborate with someone. Like that's why I love this podcast. Because it does spark new ideas and
It
it
really
motivates you.
does. That
Yeah.
makes me happy to hear. And I
Yeah.
totally agree. And also, like, I started following you and I was like, hey, like, I love what you're doing. I would love to interview you.
Yeah,
Like,
it's so nice.
that's an example, I think, also of just
Yeah.
like reaching out to people that you
Yes.
admire what they're doing. And I think for so long, I'm even like a pretty relatively shy, like more introverted person, but
Yeah, I would never
content
know that. Yeah.
so many people don't believe me. My girlfriend doesn't believe me. I
Yeah.
wonder if she hears me. She's in the other room.
I hope she
She'll
pops
laugh.
in. That's
But
so nice.
I come from a super outgoing family. So,
Yeah.
and I was saying before, like I have more family who works in entertainment or stand-up comedy, radio, podcasting than any other profession. So I'm seen as like a quiet person, but content actually helps me build that confidence
Oh,
because
that's so
I'm
nice.
able to put it out there, right? It's on my
Yeah.
own terms. It's when I'm feeling energetic and when I'm feeling creative. And then it also gives me a talking point and a touch point for someone to like know who I am and like add
Yes.
value. So I'm able to reach out to people and say, I would love to interview you. So that's an
Yeah.
organic way of building relationship, but I'm bringing something also to the table. And for me, that feels really nice that I'm able to be like, I would love to have you on this platform that I'm building and share
Yeah.
your story, right? Like, to
Yes.
me, that's just a really nice way of leveraging content, but cultivating relationships, which
Oh,
at the end of the day, we all want to be doing.
yes. Okay, that is so perfectly stated too, because I think that I don't know if you ever listened to like any calm app or meditation app or
Hmm.
anything. This is not a plug, but one of my coworkers told me about Insight Timer, and there was
Ooh,
this amazing. They have like courses and challenges, and this I did this 21-day challenge. I think his name is Lewis Howes.
yes.
Okay,
Hmm.
and he did one on confidence because I was just kind of like, huh, I wonder what this is gonna be like because I feel like a lot of people who produce content, you would imagine that they are so confident, but you'll be surprised on so many of my calls, people are like, oh, I just like don't want to do that if I don't like I don't want to go live. Like, what if people say I'm like, well, the one risk you're taking of going live is that yes, there are like always going to be haters. And I think that
Hmm.
luckily there are tools on Instagram that you can limit the comments and things, but
Yes.
it is nerve-wracking. Like I don't doubt it when people go live. I'm like, I don't blame you. But I do think that using tools and resources like that are so helpful too. And like that one was a great example. And that also made me think of like we did this whole exercise on how creators actually block off days. So if let's say you're like, I'm feeling really energetic, you should make that day a content day. So you should film and write or whatever you can do, whatever you have capacity for. And like you might have, I don't know, might not say limited bandwidth, but maybe like 2 days later, you're just so tired. You're already going to have that content filmed. And I think that I'm sure that's what you're doing because like you
Hmm.
already have this podcast on Fridays, and Friday is usually like a energizing day. But
Totally.
I think that's just a good tip for creators who are just starting because I think they imagine people are getting dressed and doing a full face of makeup every day. And that's not the case.
No. Super not the case. I looked like a
No.
feral cat just yesterday. Like I, I needed to take a shower. I needed to like
Yeah.
wash my hair. I had no makeup on. I
Yeah.
had sweatpants, my girlfriend's hoodie on. Like
Yeah.
I look like a
I love
feral
that you still
cat.
wear a hoodie. Yeah.
Yeah, like I look like a feral cat. And so I always tell people too, like if it's a day I put on my eyebrows, like I'm gonna make the most out of that day.
The
I'm
eyebrows
gonna
are looking fabulous.
Thank
So
you. Like that's when the
that's
days
great.
when I
Yeah.
pay attention to my eyebrows. I'm like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
either recording a podcast, I have client
Mhm.
calls, and I'm gonna create content. And I only take calls on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and
Okay.
then on Fridays I save for my podcast. So even
Oh,
just
that's great.
mentally, I make sure I have that break in between so I can like do no makeup days, like again, look
Yes.
like a feral cat. But on the days that I know I'm going to, be live, if you will, I'll also be like, okay, I'll create some content because I'm already in the flow. I'm already talking about the thing.
Yes.
I'll just
Yeah.
change my shirt. Really, that's like the
Yeah.
big difference. But I'll bank some content when I'm already in the vibe. So
Yes.
when
I would
on those other days, I'm like, I'm not on camera. Like,
no.
hard no,
Oh,
this is a voiceover or
yeah. Yeah.
some old
That's so
content from the
smart.
archives. Yeah, like no, we're not going live today.
I was actually wondering if you had like a podcast shirt, if you had like an outfit that
Oh, I I usually have
I like the
like
denim.
my denim, and this I just like throw over to like look like
Oh
I kind of
wow.
got dressed.
Yeah.
But yes, I do things like that totally
Yeah.
to
And
kind of get dressed.
I think that's good. I showed you earlier, but I was like, I had such cuter pants on, but I feel the same on Fridays. I'm usually like, I'm just gonna wear a little hoodie.
Yes.
But yeah.
And that's also too, I purposely scheduled my podcast to record on Fridays because
Yeah.
I noticed that other people who are creators and building
Yeah.
something cool, usually Fridays is that day that they can like take a
Yes.
pause and not take on as many meetings and kind
No.
of have like that processing day that are like,
Mhm.
okay, this is what I'm working on. And like, just is a bit more of a reflective day too, I find of like
Yes.
reviewing your week. So I'm like, this is probably a day that I could catch people who have really busy schedules during the week.
Totally.
A Friday is just an easier day for them to be like, actually, yeah, I could add that on and
Yeah.
share what I'm doing. And I find that just the energy for recording on Fridays has been working.
Totally. And thank you. I also I love doing
Yes.
on a Friday too. And I just realized too, like the thing that you and I definitely share in common, especially is going back to that podcast, which is why I was sharing it. But like the one about the insight timer is the guy Lewis Howes, and like it was like one of like day 16 or 17, I can't remember, but he said, why are you doing this? Is it to inspire or to love or like
Mm,
sharing people? And I think that you and I both probably love inspiring people because that is what I love about my job now is like
yes.
if I'm seeing someone kill it with reels, I'm like, hey, you should do a collaboration with someone that's not in your network or get a different audience perspective because that's also how you can build following. And like, I'm definitely obviously loyal to Instagram, but I also encourage everyone to go on every platform because that's going to take more effort and time, but it does help your exposure, especially since the YA youth,
Mm-hmm.
young adult,
Mm-hmm.
they're all on TikTok. So it's kind of just like,
Yes.
why not do the most if you're already creating the content?
Do you see that when people are creating, say, just short form video, that it's fairly applicable to different platforms?
Okay, I think it depends. Like I definitely use my Instagram more as like showcasing what I'm working on.
Hmm.
And I don't currently go on TikTok, but I do think that like when I was going on TikTok before I started here, I think
Hmm.
I was going for more laughs and just watching for the funny content. So I think that like it's funny. I actually had to go to an allergist appointment recently, and they like take a camera scope all the way down your nose, and they were like, "This would kill it on TikTok," and I was like,
The
"It
allergist
probably
said
would."
that?
Yeah, the assistant, she was like 22, and she was like, "This would be a really funny TikTok," because I had commentary while they were doing it, and I was thinking about it, I'm like, that would probably perform very well on TikTok, but I would personally never be able to be like, "Hey, like everyone who's with reels," like I would not
Right.
put my photos on Instagram. So I do
Totally.
think
That's a really good, no, that's totally a really good example of understanding the
yeah.
nuance of the platform, but also
Mhm.
understanding you as, say, like the brand, right?
Yeah.
If it's a personal brand or if it's a product-based brand or service-based brand, understanding the nuance of your story and then what platform that would perform well on, which
Yeah.
takes some time and practice. And I even myself, like I've been creating content for 14 years, but TikTok for whatever reason was just still feeling so daunting that I'm just starting to kind of find my groove with it.
Yeah. Oh, I bet
As
you're killing it.
as an elder millennial, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, like I need to step it up. I need to
Yeah.
stay with it. But I remember when like getting on Twitter was like a major deal. I remember
Yes.
when that was like a big deal to get a brand on Twitter.
Oh
Like
my
that
God.
was part of my job back in
Yeah.
the day. And now it's like that plus, everything else. So
Yes.
that's really great advice. Anything else that you would recommend to someone who's just like starting out?
Um, okay, we've tapped on a few things. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think also besides outreach, collaboration, content calendar, probably just like be confident with trying different like I don't know how to maybe like be confident with trying different reels templates or things that are part of Instagram because oftentimes if you use the tools that are in there you'll get more exposure. Like I know a lot of people complain and be like the reels template's so challenging because it won't use like the zero point 0.5 seconds I want, and it does take more time to create that versus using like a editing app like CapCut or
Right.
Vixer or something. But I do think it pays off to use a Reels template every so often. So challenge yourself with that. And I also think that using engagement tools in your stories are so helpful. Like polls, the Ask Me Anythings. I feel like people are always like, what? Why would anyone want to hear about me? But if you're already putting yourself out there, people are watching, they will have questions. I think I personally love Ask Me Anythings when
Me
people do
too.
this. Yeah. Like a little shout out, Joey Zauzig, he does a really funny Ask Me Anything. And he does a lot of skincare and confidence and self empowerment. And his are so funny. So I feel like anyone who needs a little inspiration, follow someone who you like that doesn't ask me anything. Yeah.
I love that. Katie, this has been such a fun interview. I
I
appreciate
love chatting with
you.
you. We
Me
could talk for another
too.
hour.
We could literally talk for hours. I want to thank you again for coming on and for
Thank
sharing your
you.
story and really sharing the transparency behind your journey and
Sure.
how you found your way. I didn't even know about the entrepreneurship and
Oh, that's so
help
nice.
Yeah, and how cool that was, and you testing and trying and experimenting, and also your own journey of wellness, of mental health, and how you've crafted a career around that now, and how you are now helping others do that too. And that's such an impactful story. And I just thank you so much for sharing
Oh,
it here.
thank you. Thank you for hosting and letting me share my story. This is so nice.
I
And I
love
can't
it.
wait to interview you next time.
Yes.
Yay.
Let me know. I love the new podcast. And
Yeah.
once it goes live, I'll share it and all
Okay,
the
perfect.
things.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for listening. I hope that you found some really great gems. I'll put the transcript on my blog with kellybennett.com and all the notes and all the links. So thank you again, Katie. And thank you everyone for listening. I'll see you next week.
Woo.
Bye.